Hello, and welcome to Tech Cubicle on SAP. I'm Darryl Griffiths, and this is my weekly 180 where I spend 180 seconds on the latest techie news that impacts the world of SAP. At the end, I'll pick my favourite to review in a little more detail in the cubicle. In my SAP techie news this week, E3 Magazine interviews Qinsang Lam, Global SAP on Oracle Director at Oracle. The article talks a little of the history between SAP on Oracle Database and looks to the future of SAP on Oracle Cloud infrastructure. Some touted benefits of Oracle Cloud include the usual flexibility and scalability, but there is an unusual mention of high utilization rates of the Oracle infrastructure compared to traditional data centers. I wonder if we can get more details on that for those interested in the sustainability aspect. I've put a link to the article in the description of the video down below. An interesting and positive article from the IT News podcast site that goes to highlight how Powerlink Queensland is replatforming from Azure into a RISE deal. I actually think this is a fairly well written and independent article on how Powerlink, a leading Australian provider of high voltage electricity transmission network services, migrated into RISE with SAP S4HANA from on-premise S4HANA in Azure. They stated that one of the drivers was to gain access to Joule, SAP's AI co-pilot, plus a number of other key products such as SAP Sustainability Control Tower. General Manager of Business IT Mark Posenda stated that there were 3 factors that allowed it to complete the migration, but that executive sponsorship is at the top of that list. The link to the article is down below. Following on from SAP's German-based Sovereign Cloud news, the SAP news site has an article on how SAP now has a UK Sovereign Cloud option. The quote from the article, SAP's Sovereign Cloud is designed to meet the highest standards of data residency, security and compliance within the UK. This makes it an ideal solution for public sector organisations, defence contractors, utilities and other highly regulated industries. From the article, the service includes the following products: SAP S4HANA Private Cloud, SAP SuccessFactors, SAP BTP, SAP Analytics Cloud, SAP Fieldglass and Digital Supply Chain, including IPP. What is not mentioned is how the new company structure will be managed, since true sovereign cloud has to be owned and operated by a UK registered company, independent from the SAP mothership. I talk a bit more about sovereign cloud in episode 34, which I will put a link above here for that episode. The link to the SAP News article is in the description down below. In Security Week, a warning to patch the SAP Web Dispatcher against vulnerability CVE 2024-47590, which is noted as being an 8.8 on the CVSS3 scoring system. The article details some of the possible workarounds, although it's missing one that I can think of. I feel the article itself is still a little scaremongering in the wording. The vulnerability itself is not as simple as thought to exploit because of a couple of aspects, so be sure to analyse the risk before jumping in with a potentially disruptive change. The link to the article and also the vulnerability details on the NIST website, because I'm super helpful, are down below. Next, UKISUG, the SAP UK and Ireland User Group, launches an S4HANA Academy to upskill and reskill members to better prepare them for S4HANA adoption. From the blog page, the S4HANA Academy course has 6 modules which will be delivered in person with separate learning journeys for technical end users and functional/business users. And those modules are S4HANA Overview, Solution Architecture, Network and Security, Application Development, Analytics and Data Management, Customization. The link to the page is down below. ERP Today runs an article on the new partnership between NTT Data Business Solutions and AWS, called A Rise to Innovation Powered by a Zero-Cost Move. From reading the article, it seems the cost of the migration is being offset through the provisioning of advanced new features for the customer. I personally think that would be a tricky calculation. Overall, I can't see anything revolutionary in this article, but if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments down below. I've put a link to the article also down there. My favourite item this week is the Security Week warning to patch the SAP Web Dispatcher against vulnerability CVE 2024-47590. Wherever there is a vulnerability like this, I always go and check the NIST website to see what it says, independent of what SAP might say or not say. If we look at the NIST site for this vulnerability, we see it has a CVSS3 score of 8.8, which is high. We see there are a number of abbreviations after the CVSS score, and these show how that score is calculated based on a number of factors. We can hover over that to understand what those abbreviations mean. Attack vector is network. Attack complexity is low. Privilege required is none. User interaction is required. Just off those first few, and from reading the text on the site, we can understand that an attacker with no privileges can somehow coerce a user to do something to trigger the exploitation of the system via the vulnerability. The text on the page mentions XSS, which stands for cross-site scripting. Let's look at how this exploit would need to play out. Here's a picture I created earlier. What a guy. We can see our SAP Basis Administrator, and they have visibility of the SAP Web Dispatcher Administration console. It's a web page that you log into. We can also see our threat actor, and he has crafted a malicious website with a specific clickable link. This website could also be a target from a link that gets sent in a spoofed email pretending to come from a co-worker. The objective of the threat actor is to make the Basis admin access the malicious website web page, but only when the Basis admin has already authenticated to the target web dispatcher. The web page would contain some code that, when executed, would call a specific function on the target web dispatcher and execute the threat actor's predetermined commands on the server operating system that is hosted, the web dispatcher. Based on this scenario, we can see that there are a number of things the threat actor needs to know. Number 1, the internal web address and network port of the SAP web dispatcher from the perspective of the Basis admin. 2, the operating system of the target server that is running the web dispatcher, e.g. a Linux command will not work on Windows, for example. The threat actor is hoping that the target web dispatcher has internet access. This is to allow a two-way access method to be created for the threat actor to gain access to command control. The target SAP Web Dispatcher web admin web page is running from a default network port or a common port. Again, this is for the threat actor to guess. If some of the above are not in place or not guessed correctly, then the threat actor's attempts will fail. The workaround mentioned on the original article is to disable the SAP Web Dispatcher's web admin page, but an alternative option is to lock it down to a specific high-range network port that is not commonly used. Another option is to only allow access to the SAP Web Dispatcher's web admin page from a jump box that does not have internet access. So, in summary, whilst this is an 8.8 severity, the specifics dictate quite a chain of fundamental issues and defaults for it to be exploitable. If you're not sure, it's probably best to patch it as soon as possible. Stay safe. As always, reference links are in the description, drop me a comment to give the video a thumbs up, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, bye bye.